Hello, welcome to the video. This is part 2 of 6 videos on the behaviour of Tyrannosaurus individuals throughout the Jurassic Park/World films and spin-off shows. In the previous video, we looked at the Jurassic Park trilogy's Tyrannosaurus depictions and noticed a trend where it started out animal-like but became increasingly movie monster-like with each succeeding film. This video will be looking at the Jurassic Park series of films. These are the main trilogy, that is Jurassic World, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World Dominion, alongside the standalone sequel, Jurassic World Rebirth. This will more than likely not be as long as the previous video, given that 3 out of 4 of these films only give a very limited amount of screen time to Tyrannosaurus. Jurassic World has the Indominus as its main predatory dinosaur, Fallen Kingdom has the Indoraptor, and Rebirth has the Distortus Rex, or what I've heard some dub as the Diddy Rex, because welcome to the internet. Anyway, as previously mentioned, part 3 will be on Camp Cretaceous and part 4 on Chaos Theory, before finishing up on part 5 and 6, which will be respectively on the Michael Crichton novels and the Indominus and Diddy Rex. So if you want to know when those release, make sure to like and subscribe. And now, on with the video. Jurassic World features the Indominus Rex, a hybrid dinosaur based primarily on the Tyrannosaurus genome as its main dinosaur. However, we do see a Tyrannosaurus appear in this film, this Tyrannosaurus being the one from the first Jurassic Park film, known as Rexy/Roberta. We first see her in a scene that only lasts a few seconds of her chomping down on a goat. I think it's worth noting that they throw in a bit of nostalgia by having Rexy attracted to the goat by placing a flare near it. That attraction to flares is shown to be important later, when Claire is shown using a flare to lure Rexy from her paddock to the main street, where we have the second megatheropod battle of the franchise. Rexy is shown barging through a Spinosaurus skeleton before dueling with the Indominus, to which I think it's worth noting a couple things about this fight. We see Rexy come barging through the Spinoskeleton while the Indominus was previously busy trying to kill the human characters. The two stand several meters apart like they're sizing each other up before both charge at each other. Given what I said about the Bull T-Rex in JP3 previously, of how both theropods were chasing after humans, you could interpret this as both fighting over food or territory. And I guess to some extent, it's kind of like the Spino versus Rex fight from Jurassic Park 3, except this time the Rex is lured to the battle zone by the humans rather than mindlessly chasing them. Like my conclusion on Bull in JP3, I think this version is more movie monster than anything else. I mean, in the part where Blue saves Rexy by pouncing on the Indominus, if we were talking realism, Rexy probably would have just run off upon Blue distracting the I-Rex, given the realization that the Indominus is clearly stronger than Rexy. However, what we see is Rexy instead getting back up and proceeding to ram the Indominus through a couple buildings and swing it around like a rag doll. And after the Indominus dies, we see Rexy and Blue kind of look at each other and then just decide to go their separate ways, both having visible signs of damage from the battle, especially Rexy. Overall, while Rexy in Jurassic Park was shown to be more of a realistic sort of depiction of a Tyrannosaurus, this version comes across more as a movie monster. A more generous interpretation could skew it as Rexy battling over territory with the Indominus and not really caring that Blue is there due to her being much smaller. But again, given Rexy nearly died, I think she'd be more inclined to run away than continue the fight. And given this is all we see of Rexy in this movie, not much else can be said. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was for a while considered to be probably the worst film in the franchise until Dominion reared its ugly head, and just like the previous film, Rexy doesn't get much screen time. The opening scene has Rexy chase after some hired mercenaries who came to the island to get a DNA sample of the Indominus, and overall all I can say is that she just chases one of them, has a tug of war with the helicopter, and that's about it. I think by this point in the film, given Jurassic World had been closed for a few years at this point, she probably won't have been interested in chasing after humans, given she would have become used to hunting larger prey by this point. But at the same time, I guess, well, the dude would make for a decent snack, so there's that. The next scene with Rexy shows her just randomly killing a Carnotaurus despite a volcano erupting right behind her, and the only reason she buggers off is because the shockwave of the blast hits her and she snaps out of her aura farming moment meant as teaser trailer material. As a side note, I was 12 when this film came out, and remember all the hype from people like the Gaming Beaver and similar channels theorizing what might happen. And now, we're only 2 years away from this movie being a decade old, but it feels like just yesterday I got to see this film for the first time. Where did that time go? Now that we're off the island and on a ship heading to the mainland, we get simultaneously the most realistic and unrealistic scene in this entire movie in relation to Tyrannosaurus. Blue the Velociraptor is shown to be wounded, and it's stated the humans need a blood transfusion to save her. Good news, there's a blood donor on board. Bad news, it's Rexy. Now, this video is focused on the behaviour, but I do think it's worth noting that this more than likely wouldn't work in real life. Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus are separated by millions of years of evolution, fill completely different niches, and one is a lot larger than the other. I mean, this is like if your cat was dying, and instead of using blood from a cat of the same blood type, you use blood from your local zoo's grizzly bear. Anyway, back to Tyrannosaurus behaviour. The realistic side to this is when Rexy wakes up and starts roaring, trying to move around in the confined space the poachers put her in. This is like what I pointed out with Buck in the Lost World, in that Rexy here has just woken up in an alien environment. So the best conclusion is that, while yeah, this is meant so we have a dramatic scene of Owen jumping through her mouth, it's understandable for Rexy to be stressing out in this situation. My family personally has a cat that doesn't really like confined spaces, and there's also people in real life that suffer from claustrophobia, and would more than likely have the same reaction as Rexy if put in this situation. Afterwards, we get some shots that don't really mean much. We see Rexy get transported to another cage, eat the bad guy of the film, and have a standoff with a lion. Overall, this depiction comes across more like a movie monster, apart from the part of her stressing out in her container. Since 1 minute her home was blowing up and the next minute she's been put in a container barely big enough for her. I'd say this is a 75-25 mixture between animal and movie monster, leaning towards movie monster. Jurassic World Dominion is my least favourite Jurassic World film, but this is probably the most interesting one to talk about as far as megatheropods are concerned, given we have the appearance of Giganotosaurus in this movie. The first shot we see of a Tyrannosaurus in this movie is the prologue scene, which didn't make it into theatres, but I thought it would still be worth talking about. Now, Giganotosaurus and Tyrannosaurus didn't live on the same continent, or even in the same bracket of time, but it's still interesting. We see both mega predators size each other up before both start fighting, with the Giganotosaurus quickly coming out on top, killing the T-Rex. A lot of people tend to complain in saying that T-Rex would have won and that this isn't realistic because if these two species did live with each other, which they didn't, they probably would have avoided each other. One thing I think is worth noting when it comes to interactions between predators is that I think a lot of people, in response to them often being seen as mindless killers, go too far in the other direction. I remember Shark Toz had said to me that Leviathan and Megalodon would have more than likely avoided each other due to the chances of severe injury, and yeah, this is true. However, it's also worth noting that you see a lot of predators in the modern day have near-lethal interactions with other predatory species. Africa is a prime example, given we see lions, leopards, hyenas, cheetahs, and crocodiles. All are very large species of predators, and all have hostile interactions with each other. Black and brown bears in North America are also known to fight with each other alongside wolves and pumas. While Megalodon versus Leviathan fights probably won't have been a common occurrence, especially given water is a more fragile ecosystem to be in than on land, it probably would have happened at least a couple times throughout geological time. The same would also apply to Giganotosaurus and Tyrannosaurus if they lived in the same ecosystem. Admittedly, Giganotosaurus probably would have stood down more often than T-Rex, given the more robust and stronger build of Tyrannosaurus, but you get the point I'm trying to make. The next section shows Rexy walking through a drive-in theatre and doesn't really kill anyone, acting more like those bears you see raiding service stations, where she's more of a nuisance than a mindless killer. This scene honestly gives me a feeling more of Rexy being like an actual animal in this tiny section of the longest Jurassic World movie, compared to 2015's installment in the series where she had a boss fight with the I-Rex. The next scene we have of Rexy is her first on-screen interaction with the Giganosaurus, where we see them fight over a deer carcass, with Rexy finding it first, and the Giganosaurus attempting to, and succeeding in, stealing it. The interaction is short, instead of a massive action sequence, being mainly used to just establish the Giganosaurus as being above Rexy in terms of power. This interaction, I'd say, is also a nice step in the right direction. A lot of interactions like this between predators do occur in nature. Two predators find the same meal and have a brief argument over it, but it doesn't play out like some action movie scene. I know there will obviously be people who'll comment saying Giganosaurus would lose to Tyrannosaurus, and I am aware. I've talked about this topic in previous videos, but this isn't a full scientific breakdown of who wins or loses. This is a look at whether or not the Tyrannosaurus individuals depicted act like actual animals, and maybe I'll extend it to other dinosaurs in this series if you want me to. Please comment if you want me to. Anyway, the next scene with Rexy in this movie is of course the final battle between her and the Giga. We have Alan say that the fight isn't about our human characters, and then we see Rexy just get thrown around by the Giga until the Therizinosaurus joins the fight. And from there, after being knocked out, Rexy out of nowhere gets this power up and proceeds to ram the Giga into the Therizinosaurus' claws, killing it. And then both Rexy and Ferry roar in victory. This entire fight scene felt weird to watch. We went from some stuff that was a bit more animal-like and more realistic compared to previous entries, and then it gets thrown away for spectacle. The final shot of this movie with a Tyrannosaurus in it shows Rexy meeting Buck and Doe from The Lost World, which honestly doesn't have much that can be said about it beyond that it's just nostalgia bait. The most I can say is it shows social behaviour between Tyrannosaurus individuals, and that's about it. Overall, this movie started out promising in terms of the behaviour of Tyrannosaurus, then it just goes downhill with the final battle. All I have to say is that thank Raptor Jesus himself, Jurassic World Rebirth decided to not have a dinosaur fight as the big finale. The latest of the Jurassic World film series, for now at least, is Jurassic World Rebirth. Released 10 years after the first Jurassic World film, and probably the most visually distinct to the point it looks more fitting in the Jumanji films starring The Rock than an actual Jurassic movie. I personally enjoyed this film a lot more than Dominion, in case you're wondering. This film is the first film in the series to have Tyrannosaurus and another large carnivorous dinosaur, and not have them fight each other, in case you're wondering. Heck, I think this movie has the title of the most large carnivorous dinosaurs on screen out of all the Jurassic films, given we see 3 Spinosaurus, 1 Tyrannosaurus, and the Diddy Rex. The previous one was Dominion, which had Rexy, Buck, Doe, and the Giga. This individual has been nicknamed Ember and is shown to be shockingly big in some shots, although this is more than likely due to Gareth Edwards directing, with him being known to not keep things within a certain scale consistently. I mean, the Diddy Rex ranges from about comparable to previous predators in this franchise to being larger than Kong in Kong Skull Island. Anyway, the only scene we have of Ember is the raft scene, which is meant in a way as a homage to the first novel by Michael Crichton, where the Tyrannosaurus attacks Alan, Lex, and Tim, trying to escape on a raft. Ember honestly feels kinda incompetent in this scene. Rather than being like Rexy or other predators in previous films where they are shown being fast when it comes to killing people, Ember is shown basically just lumbering along while chasing after the humans. Admittedly, Buck and Doe kinda do that in The Lost World, but it feels a lot more egregious here. We see Ember wake up from a nap before magically disappearing out of view behind an inflatable raft and going to get a drink of water before deciding to chase after the humans trying to escape on said raft. Ember just kind of slowly moves along, and rather than just going straight for the kill, just decides to dive beneath the water and come up from above, flip the boat over, then wander onto land, and try a dinosaur style of bobbing for apples. It honestly feels almost like Ember just wants to toy with the humans and isn't out to kill them. We also see in the final section, where they escape from Ember, that the Tyrannosaurus could have just gone around the rocks rather than just wandering off. I guess the toying with them interpretation could be one way of looking at it, but personally this feels more in line with just being a very bad movie monster portrayal, where the humans possess too much plot armor for any of them to be at risk of dying. I mean, we see Ember just flip the raft over, rather than striking down from above, and then roars for no reason before going on the land to try and strike from above. While I think this is one of the cooler looking Tyrannosaurus designs in the film series, I honestly think this scene could have had some work done on it. Ember's behaviour feels kinda weird and doesn't make much sense, so I think I'll put this down as a movie monster with a question mark. Ember doesn't really feel like a real animal unless you want to look at this portrayal of Tyrannosaurus as toying around with the humans, which implies that Tyrannosaurus in this film series needs some level of stimulation. It isn't too far out of range of speculation, given zoos like to give animals toys as entertainment and do things on occasion for stimulation, so perhaps this Tyrannosaurus needs something like that on occasion. It's also worth noting that there was a dead Parasaurolophus nearby that Ember could have just eaten, so in a way, Ember just did a repeat of Bull from Jurassic Park 3 but didn't die in a fight with another large carnivore in the process. In conclusion, these films collectively show Tyrannosaurus as being a mixture of movie monster and animal, leaning primarily towards movie monster, given these films are made more for spectacle. I personally prefer the original trilogy's depiction of Tyrannosaurus than these new films, even if Bull did absolutely nothing and died. I mean, at least he had the balls to go toe-to-toe with a dinosaur implied to hunt his species rather than back down, and put up a decent fight before dying, unlike Rexy, who only survives thanks to other dinosaurs helping out. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video and will like, share and subscribe as a result.